today's program, and our first presenter speaker is Yuliia Kravchenko. And Yuliia, if you could please introduce yourself and start. Thank you. And you can use this to advance your slides.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very glad to be a part of this amazing community. Each of us are interested in this important topic, concept as empathy. On the beginning of the start of my speech, I want to express I want to say that I want to say a big thank you and a big grateful on behalf of Ukrainian nation, Ukrainian people, for the support which we have now in this very difficult time. And people all around the world, many governments support us, especially US government. So we really appreciate it and know who are our friends in the difficult time. My journey, I'm here. I'm here because in March I have chance to be a participant a wonderful workshop which took place in Glencairn Museum and which has name Empathy, Design for Empathy, second workshop. When I saw these two words, design and empathy, so it's so close to me. I didn't know before about this movement. I didn't know before what Alif are doing, and I was very excited to discover this community, their direction, and for me it was very meaningful to be here in early March 2022, and it was very healing to be one day among your community. So, up to your request, I will tell a few words about myself. Yes, I just finished my program at Columbia University Teachers College, Teachers College as a Fulbright scholar. Currently, I am head of of the Laboratory of Critical Thinking Development in Ukraine. I work here, I work in the National Center, Junior Academy of Sciences of Ukraine, last 7 years. Before, I was a teacher at universities, few national universities in Kyiv, in the capital, as a teacher of Ukrainian history. My background is philosophy education, and especially Ukrainian culture and Ukrainian philosophy. So later I mentioned some words about this. I discovered that non-formal learning approach is not easy to implement in university frame. And that's why I escaped from university, I could say. And I discovered that students didn't like my suggestion of different kind of, and sometimes they thinking that my life is too boring, and I just in that way make some joyful things, and I wanted to give them that not usual tasks for them, like for cooperation, for develop soft skills. And it took 1 year for me to find a right place with my things, with those what I like to do. And it is a Junior Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. It is an organization which work. It's the biggest, I could say, in Ukraine, government organization, which work at extracurricular field. So we cover all scientific directions, and children after school have chance to research and develop own knowledge, own skills on those directions. What do they like math, physics, history, whatever. And we work in all towns, all cities, small towns, even villages. So it means that we have very huge networks, and thanks for this our activity, many children have chance really to get very high level quality knowledge, and they are participating in numerous international events, Olympiads, competitions, and really gain a lot of golden medals like that. But it means that they have very high level of intellectual of knowledge and skills. So I came to that project not like my activity here is enough experimental. Extracurricular field gives the chance to make experiment, pedagogical experiment. It is difficult to do in school in Ukraine, and I think it's not just in school in Ukraine. So in other schools, it's a strict curricular. Teachers haven't time for this. So, but extra. After school education gives the chance for that kind of educators as me. So I like to make experiment. I participated in numerous training, and I found at some moment how amazing is non-formal education. I just was wonder why I haven't that kind of activity in school, why I haven't something at university, and I understood that really that approaches give a chance to get knowledge more effective and to be more fruitful in this learning process for both for teachers and for students. So I came to this institution, this program, Philosophy for Children. And here I need to make a few words about this program, because also thanks for this program. Before, maybe it was, because what was before, I came to the also to concept of empathy also throughout this approach. So that's why for me it's important to explain this way. It's an amazing program. I call myself evangelista of that approach. I could talk about this 1 hour, 1 day, 2 days. I involved in that movement last 11 years. I was also I got scholarship of Polish government 12 years ago, and I'm very grateful for Polish government for this possibility, which they do for Ukrainian scholars. And I discovered, and I was so fascinated when I back to Ukraine, I saw that nobody knows about this. So I decided to be a pioneer in Ukraine and started to research by myself and also bring into educational field in Ukraine. So the program was developed by American educators, Matthew Lipman. Actually, he born an idea, and his very close colleague who started with him at the beginning of developing this, was Margaret Sharp. Lipman was a professor of Columbia University, but he made his first experiment with his approach in New Jersey, near Montclair. And Montclair College support this experiment. It was very fruitful, and later Lipman became teacher, professor of Montclair College, later Montclair State University. So the program is amazing because, and for me unique, because it's together develops 3 kinds of thinking skills: critical, creative, and caring thinking. There are many programs with development of critical thinking, of creative thinking, also like some emotional intelligence or empathy, or there is that kind. But together in one approach to combine and harmonically involve, develop this, it is, for me, it's pretty unique. And it works in framework of this approach. So that's why I'm so fascinated of this. Now Lipman founded a center in Montclair State University until this day. It is a world center, I could say, for all scholars like me, where it's our honor to visit it, to study here. So even all around the world, there are centers of this approach. There are this program developed in like 80 countries. It has 50 years old, and now it's for me even much more actual than in time of Lippmann's, because of this gadget and other our style of life. It's really helped children to start to read carefully and to develop skills of interpretation and many other skills I mentioned later. Caring thinking, it was for me what really touched me. Before, I don't know the kind of, I know that things, but I don't know this caring thinking. And for example, for Ukrainian language, it's not easy to translate this concept care. We have like 5-6 words which is belong to this field, to this area, but no one of this word, how to say, translated equally this, and we are working with this terminology even. Western scholar usually made accent on critical thinking when they are talking about philosophy for children, P4C, it's abbreviation. They are first of all mention critical thinking and saying, oh, it's about critical. Oh, I mentioned this. I like Western scholar, but Eastern scholar, whom I mean Eastern, it's because I have experience to study in South Korea, and I cooperated with a colleague from Philippines, Thailand. For them, it's absolutely clear. They started from caring thinking. In article, in talking about this, for them it's important, first of all. And my working with this approach was intuitionally. So I catched this concept like I so like it like become part of me. But it become part of me because it's very naturally something for me to do this, to work in that way. Started from caring thinking. And I just recently reflect that kind of thing, that it is for me also on the first place, like for Eastern scholar. And then I'm thinking why, because I'm just thinking why it happened. And I found there very interesting for me, very interesting explanation, and I couldn't mention, presenting my work, I couldn't mention the prominent, the #1 Ukrainian philosopher, Grigory Skovoroda. Especially important to mention for me it's now because this year, after 1 month, we celebrate 300 of birth of his anniversary of his birth. Nobody knows this philosopher. It's our colonial, how to say, colonial experience and destiny at that moment, and it's a time for the world to discover Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian philosophy. So, and what is, and especially because we are third day here, we are talking about the heart. And he, as you mentioned a little today, is that different traditions have this like teaching of heart, but even sometimes don't mention about this, but he clearly mentioned, and he has this philosophy of heart. For us, for Ukrainian, it's very, all around know about this. Philosophy of heart, he called it cordocentris. Cordio, it's from Greece, Latin cordio, like center, cordio. Yeah, and he was extremely interesting guy. He was totally out. As for today's criteria, he was strange even at the time. He was a person who traveled a lot, who studied actually during whole his life, but it was normally in 18th century. He like studied in 7th university, and he traveled by walking. So he was a homeless person. He didn't print any text during his life. But today, after 300 of years, for us Ukrainian, he is #1 as our teacher. He's those environment people where he lived, because rich people, it was for them honor to host the person. Especially they very valued that because he worked with their children, and he was less like home teacher. And those people, he's also some student, they printed his actually, that's why we have, because he live in different way, write somewhere, leave this old documents. So, but after they, luckily, so his heritage was printed. And he really created senses, very actual and modern in today. And for us, he is now like really, he gives us orientation how to live in this life. He like a red line of all his, because he really has unique idea. We call him like Ukrainian Socrates, or who was also like Aesop, because he was a fairy taler. And the main line in his philosophy was a question, who am I? And in different way, he all time put this question and telling, it's number one, what person should discover. Other things not so important. So if a person like a scholar just could obtain many knowledge, it doesn't mean nothing if person couldn't answer a question, who am I? And thanks for those, if I could give and I am able to give that answer, then I know what kind of talents I have and what I really want. And based on this, I could really choose whom I want to be. And this is one important point in his theory. It's to know what do you want to do in your life. And he said that a person will be happy just in case when he or she discovered what he wants to do. Otherwise, if even a person have like very good payment, very fashion profession, but it's not his or her, so in that case, person is not happy. So he, it just a few points, but also he developed this teaching about heart. For him, heart was really like a mind, sometimes more important than rational. And he like told about 50-50, that it's very important to feel the world, to feel the people, and listen to your heart, because your heart also could tell you something what is important in your life. And in this, his idea, he close to the philosophy of Kierkegaard, who lived later and developed much more better and wrote on a text. But I think that Kierkegaard didn't know, of course, Yuri Skovoroda, but this idea is our later existentialism, Sartre, Camus. It's also about this, because emotion, it's a very important part of our life. It's very naturally, but this rational directions in your philosophy, so make a brain like the main authority and neglect our emotional nature. And in that case, so Skovoroda was very, very right. And I understand that, of course, I at university during my PhD studies, I research, and for me it's very important when I research something as a theory, I'm always try to understand how I can use it in practice. So, and I accepted really these ideas and in some way transform it in my practice in work, especially with children. And many quotes we have with Skovoroda. We now, this year, we have even Instagram, and even he have a Instagram by Skovoroda. It's in Ukrainian, but this agency who created his page each day put some quotes from his text, and it's like you just follow and like wake up in the morning. Okay, so with this idea just to promote. Recently, I provided a camp for school online, and now I will start actually to talk about my work, and it was devoted to this guy. So children was so fascinated by the idea, by this. He was at the same time, because one of the speakers told us he liked to live. He liked wine, he likes cigars, he liked good food. So he was like hedonist, but in the same time he was, and also has a very ascetic life, and he recognized the Christianity. A Bible for him, it's a huge world, and he has a special text about this, and it's very interesting. But he didn't like the strict rules of religion institution, and of course, people of religion institution didn't like him too much, and there was some fighting. Yeah, it's very sad things. I just saw you one slide. So Skovoroda, he representative of Baroque epoch in Ukraine. It's 18th century, and this epoch is very rich. It's one of the most richest page in our culture history. We adopted a European criteria of Baroque, but we put it into our folk tradition, and we have totally different Baroque style, architecture, piece of arts, music is very famous one. I don't know, maybe you know this name, like Vedel, Berezovsky, Bortnyansky. It's a classic in world heritage Baroque music. So they were born in Ukraine in their time. Of course, if you will now open any resources, you found that this is a Russian composers, but they were Ukrainian composers. So any other gifted people. And in the early May, today 5 May, his museum, which is are in the Kharkiv region, it's very close to Russian border, was bombed totally. So you could see just the one picture. But what is interesting, like a miracle, but Skovoroda stayed. And he says that the world catched me, but the world couldn't catch me. So, and also after 300 of years, it's like that. You could hit me, you could attack me, but I don't care. And yes, it's on our money, like one of the biggest one. We have
Yuliia, before you change the slide, could you tell me what the word fabulous means? It sounds great. I want to be one.
Fabulous, like fairy tale.
Fabulous.
Sorry, maybe it was some fabulous. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes. He wrote as like Aesop. Yeah. We call him Ukrainian Aesop also because he had this. Yes. Ukraine. We are a country with really. We were a colony of 300 years. So last 300 years, we were a colony of Russia. So, but we are a nation with 1,000 of history. Our real history started in 9 up to the chronicles and documents 9th century. We created own language, history, and horizon of view, what make us unique together with other unique nations. Of course, this 300 of years, it's issue of totally another topic. So, but Russians tried, Moscovians actually, they wasn't people, they stole our name. So, Kyiv Rus, it's a original Ukrainian name, it's our first, but in 1721 there is a historical document. The name of Moscovia as a state was changed on Russian Empire. So, and this name was took from Ukraine history. Thank you. And we really have everything what we have now was repeated. It was in history, like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and nothing new for Ukrainians, I could say. New is really a totally different situation at that moment because really world support us like never before, but before it was also different. It's historical circumstances. So, and so we have a lingual side of Ukrainian language, especially in 20th century. Really, we have a genocide of elite in 1930s. So when totally we have really brilliant generation in 1930s, people who were prominent in different branch. But just to say you example, it was the people who knew 15 languages. And they learned it by themselves because they were so talented. It was a playwrights, also poet, poems, painters, and it was like a nation was cut, so head was cut. And of course, today's event, it's like just result. We just have living in some result of those what happened. And of course, when we got independence, 1991, it is not changes couldn't come at one day. no, even not in 1 decade, even in 2 decades. So we were 300 as a colony, and in 30 years, of course, it's very difficult. And of course, many people, so it was a result of previous politics, so many Ukrainians totally don't care about own identity, about language, because yes, there are many people who continue to speak, because those who would like to speak in Russian language, they were killed, they were put to prison, they lost a normal job, they were all time bullied in society. It was like a language of villages people, of, it was a kind of politics. Like seconds, people who are not important in this country. So even I remember something like that in my childhood, in even university studies when Ukrainian was becoming independent. So, and the problem is that millions of people don't care about this, but this is really a very important question. Actually, now today's war, it also a little bit, it's one of the reasons why Russians comes just to help for Russian-speaking people. So even those Russian-speaking people feeling as Ukrainian, they feel identity. But just now they started to put that question, who we are, who am I? And when war started in 2014, for Ukrainians, war started in 2014 when throughout an annexion of Crimea and occupied of eastern regions. Many people started to do something for defend own country and become volunteers. And I had this year of like, because I escaped from university at that moment, and I was in some looking for what to do. And also I was very strongly thinking, what can I do in this situation? How I can support my country? What I want to do my best to in this situation. So, and I decided that I, as educator, will work for some important education questions, because war started in the mind. War happened because people don't think critically, don't read own history, don't care about own roots. Yes, it was a result of the politics, but people, each person also responsible for what is going on. Who didn't allow for person in independent Ukraine to start it, to learn the language, read the book. Unfortunately, people didn't want. Of course, there is a difficult economical situation, so other circumstances like didn't help this. And still, Russia tried to make influence. Our media totally was pro-Russians. All narratives continue to live like Soviet style. Even till this day, our manuals in school and approaches, it is a Soviet styles. You know, it's like some inertia. It's not easy to stop. So, but I started to ask myself, who am I at university, not in school, but it was early 2000s. Some protests started to be in Kyiv, so some people who would like. So I'm participant of three views of protest, I could say. I know how to what does it mean, young democracy, what is it to stand for your rights, for that kind of things. And I understand that I have a lack of knowledge. School didn't give me those knowledge which I should have. University also still don't give me that. And I really started to do the best to be awareness about everything what is going on. And I visited numerous different events, conferences, read a book. So when I came from Poland, decided it was 2010, decided to promote this philosophy for children, critical thinking, and visited university, work, and students in 2010 totally don't care about who they are. And I saw this big problem that it's like a gap. And in 2015, I decided I will do something for teenagers, for the youth. So I started to change mind of the youth. And that's why I started to do that kind of camp, which was, I think you will, you read actually all this, what is about. And I put in this camp, so I at that moment was enough experienced person. I read a lot. I obtained many approaches, and I started, and I'm very lucky because really, my chief, all my ideas about this camp was enough innovative in that environment. But I got permission to work, to organize something, and it really was very fruitful. So children was happy, parents was happy, and so like good results. And I have just 5 days, children coming from different part of Ukraine for 5 days. I developed the program. So that's why design is so important when we were. I put in different way this program, and because I would like to use each minute. Those children stay with me. I would like to use each minute to be effective. Most of those children were speaking in Russian. They coming from central or eastern part of Ukraine. They totally came from environment where about Ukraine they like don't care totally. But after my schools, even some parents start to talk in Ukrainian, not just children. So, and it was like some achievements. Also, I just created this name. In some basic, it is a little bit similar, Ukrainian culture, cultural diplomacy. But my idea was to explain for children that you started from the question, who you are. Who are you? So who are we as a nation? But we should make this horizon of knowledge about our roots, about our history. And I have just this few days to motivate them. Of course, I cannot give them knowledge for this few days. But my idea to motivate when they back home, they tell about this environment. They started to research. They started thinking, oh, why? They started to think it actually. Some children participated like 5, 10, and 50 times in my camps and apply, even the same name, philosophy, Ukrainian culture, but they know that it will be totally different program and totally new, different speakers. So, and I many things did, I could say, intuitionally. So because I found my, I could say, my professional field. So that's why I feel myself very free. I make this experiment, and I discover later. So what really makes like a core? What is the secret of my, I could say, of attractiveness of my camp? So and first thing which I discovered, it was. I call this emotionally safe space. So this is my concept, which is, no, it's of course it's well-known word, but I could say that it close for me because empathy have place in this when you created this emotionally safe space. Second thing, it's in the right way built designing of programs. So it is very important. And what I put in this concept, emotional safe space, so it's a space when you totally feel safety, as this word a few times mentioned before yesterday, because we have this space here. So I think that if you could provide the space, you could teach children everything, so math, biology, everything. So the problem is that this space need like new skills from teachers, because unfortunately teachers also educated in not safety space, I could say, and they then also bring in this not safety emotional space to the class. And that's why it's really a very huge problem, I think, of Earth scale, because in many countries it is exist. For me, like also two very important things, it's which teachers should provide to create this space. It is absence of evaluative judgments. I like this you mentioned in your presentation, Elif. It was on judgmental listening. So it's really amazing. I will choose, because before I didn't choose that kind of words, but I really like it. And yes, to do this, first of all, teacher, because children, they are mimic the adults' behavior. So that's why it should become an inner culture of teacher, of educator who work at that moment with children. It's not easy, but it's possible. And also there are many, so you will have this presentation, you could read some idea. And and also a dialogue. And this culture of dialogue I took from the program Philosophy for Children, and especially important things for me was also reflection. Actually, because we haven't reflection as skills in school curricula in some way, but it is very important because reflection, it's like start for your discover of yourself and answer a question, who are you? And I also put in different way in the program, and after 5 days, really children become. So they totally change their mind, and it is together with important contact, together with these different approaches, together with this space, they so highly value that kind of educational event that sometimes they say it's much more important than a few years in school. So because it's totally, they become like a real personality, they discover themselves. And yeah, what creates this, so I think that the problem is that there is a barrier when people start to communicate, to talk, and that's why it's so important. On the beginning, I have a 2-hour session for 25 students, and I'm very limited in time. I haven't all year like teachers have in school. I have just 5 days or sometimes 3 days, and during first 2 hours, my task is to make a community. So without barriers, without trust, to develop this trust feeling among the students. And it happens because children didn't know each other. So I make that a kind of activity which help them to know. And also in different way, I show them that yes, children, students, you have right for mistake. So it's a normal, because we are in learning space. And sometimes children didn't trust me, didn't say that I'm saying something, like, you know, they brought their own experience from school, that's sometimes very crucial. And then I'm in different way to show them, and like on second day and third day, they started to understand that it's true. What I'm saying, it's true in our real acts. And they started to trust, they start to behave in different way. And dialogue practice really help us to do this. So, and after 5 days, some children started to write poems. Even I don't make them that brilliant workshop as did yesterday, Maria Hall. It was unexpected for me. Even sometimes teachers on 2 days training, because now I provide for teachers kind of training and present these approaches and bring them so they could take this for their own. And they also at the end sometimes wrote poems. It's something, you know, not everybody of course, but for me it's something, it means that my goal I achieved, so because I want to bring to their heart my experience, my knowledge, and they really, it happens. So, and this is my quote, I would say. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Wait, go
ahead.
ahead.
Some flowers.
Just hold on. Just one more. Just give it some time.
Sorry. You could read later this quote. Is it? Some troubles with technically. So yeah. Yes, it is. I believe in this idea. About one more event, I will share some flyer. I didn't mention totally, but it's like the biggest my event, I could say. But the designing of program, it is in this also event, and all this principle work with this. But the topic is a dissident movement in the second part of 20th century. And actually, it's really for me, it's my teachers. I mean teachers. Most of them I didn't know, I didn't meet, but for me it's a huge, it's important heritage, not just for Ukraine, but all around the world, because those people really stood up in this authoritarian regime. Of course, they pay a high price, they pay by life, by health, by happiness, by security of family, but in long perspective they are winner, because Ukraine got independent. Ukrainian nation become a freedom nation. Many of them didn't see this, unfortunately. But and I also provide for children this event, and it was my experiment because my colleague was very skeptical. And because it's very tragic topic. When you took each person, it's so tragic that you started from crying, and it was like, okay, how I going to talk about this with children 12 years old? of course, in school, because some of those, because it's very famous poets, first of all. Of course, in school, it's like there is a portrait on a wall, and teachers say, so look, he fought for Ukraine and died because of this. We should respect him. We should be, and children totally feel any relation with those person. And it's a Soviet style of let's say. When we are doing this in this different approaches, I invited dissident those who are still alive, their family members, and also put arts, put quests, visited museums. So it's very rich program. So children just discover wow. It's my history. Oh wow, it's so interesting. So they are motivated by this and coming to local communities and organize events. So because it's a task, you participated, please bring this knowledge to your local community. I provided also in online last 2 years. It was a challenge for everybody. And even last years, for example, online really participated 130 students. Together with teachers, because after second festival, teachers called to me and say, okay, we also would like to participate. We haven't that kind of knowledge in the university. We need this to update our knowledge and skills. So, and they provided local activities after the festival, where participate 5,000 in the all around Ukraine. So, especially last year, we have many participants from eastern part of Ukraine, for those territories which now occupied. So the life is going in that way, and we didn't choose our homeland. We didn't choose a time, historical time, but we choose what we are doing every day. So, and every day we make own agenda, we make own plan, and we of course could make this world better. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm very sorry for time.
I mean, this was just so moving and informational, and it was just wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us. And it really tells me that this empathy is a survival skill, right? It is not something like it's nice to have so that you can be helpful to others or be kind to others so you feel better at the end. It's not about that. It's really goes back to self-knowledge, knowledge of the self, and Skovoroda, in Turkey, my favorite poet, and all Turks' favorite poet, Yunus Emre, which has not been translated because it's difficult to translate what he says exactly, but he also says the same thing, and he adds, you need to know what wisdom is. And then what knowledge is, and the knowledge is to know yourself. So to be able to ask that question, who am I, first you need to value why you need to know who am I, right? And to me it is to survive in this world, to understand my place, now, what can I do with who I am, what I have now. And like all these presentations and workshops are coming together, and I just would like to say that I feel like really the only thing that we possess truly, not the art collections, not the buildings, but it's our attention. Even our bodies, we live, they don't belong to us. We need to take good care of them while we are in them, but. All we have is our attention and our choice. And we are the only species who can make a choice. We have the will, unlike a marine animal or some other creature that's on Earth, a river. We can make a choice. They cannot. They just are. They just exist as is. But it is our responsibility to take care, and that caring mindset, I think, it begins with the knowledge of the self, as just you said, and like many other wise people, men and women have said over thousands of years. I think we are onto something here that, you know, like, I mean, I know that we each have been working on this individually, but I feel like something new is emerging. So thank you. Thank you.